Welcome to the weekly edition of Second City Sports Zoom style,
Zoom style.
along with my co-host, creator, and founder of Second City Sports, Miss Lakeena and Sid. I am Sydney Brown. This is the weekly edition for August 17th, 2020. And you can find yours truly on Twitter and Instagram at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the Instagram. All right, Sid, we got a busy show. Hopefully Jason will join us in a little bit, but we'll get right to it, and he'll jump in. The NBA starts playoffs in the bubble, if you will, the bubble playoffs, I guess you can say. They start today, not too long from now. We're recording this on a Monday, so we're gonna go, break down a lot of like the matchups. We'll start in the East. You got Orlando and the number 1 seed Milwaukee Bucks. So, and Bovada actually, it's interesting because Bovada, their odds, they actually have no clue. Usually can kind of move the needle as to who is the favorites and such, but they really don't have a favorite considering everything that went on. So what do you think? Is there a clear cut favorite before we talk about these matchups? Do you think there's a clear cut favorite to win the NBA title?
I don't think so because even though there's a couple of injuries to a couple of key players, we'll get into that in just a minute. But besides that, everything is even because, as you mentioned, we are in a bubble. Most of the teams are evenly matched, and there could be a possible upset or two in this first round of these playoffs. And I'm really interested to see who's going to bring it, who's not. And let's be honest here, Lakina, it's about seeding and matchups for the NBA. But remember, no home court advantage. So who's going to be extra hyped up to play? Who's going to play out of their potential? Who's going to drop off? Who's going to pick it up? I can't wait to see what happens.
Well, I think the unknown, that's kind of the exciting part, right? The unknown of these playoffs,
Mm-hmm.
with everything going on. So I'm interested to see how these teams respond. I mean, we'll talk about the Blazers Lakers matchup. I'm sure that's a matchup that the Lakers did not want. So we'll just see how far they can push them, and will there be any big upsets in the East? So I'm looking forward to these playoffs because I think, look, we waited all this time. The bubble, these bubble games, if you will, were really good, and Phoenix future looks
Mm-hmm.
very bright. So Dame Lillard's playing out of his mind. So I'm looking forward to it. I mean, look, this should be a fun, especially the circumstances and everything. So I'm looking forward to see what happens here.
Yeah, I cannot wait either. Just real quick before we check out any of the Portland Memphis game from Saturday because I was very entertained by
Yeah,
that
that
game.
was.
I know Dame Dollar didn't go off as much as he did the previous games, and shout out to my mind is blanking. Nursic from
Yourself,
Portland. His
Nursic.
grandmother passed. Nursic, thank you. His grandmother passed away because of COVID-19. He had the game of his life, and so you can tell his team is really rallied behind him. And we already know what a great player he is, and so he stepped it up on Saturday, and he helped Portland achieve that number 8 spot, which they'll face the Lakers coming up on Tuesday.
Yeah. I mean that'll be fun. I think you can tell if you heard what Dame and CJ McCollum, who had a big game in that playing game with the Grizzlies, basically say that they are kind of rallying around him. So I'm looking forward to see. Blazers got a deep bench that the Lakers don't have. So that's probably like the one event that they do have, the lack of depth for the Lakers. So you wonder, especially if they get pushed to like 6 or 7, which could very well be the case. You wonder, though, could this maybe they catch them sort of napping and they can pull off the upset. All
Yeah,
right.
I'm ready for the previous playoffs. Let's go to the Eastern Conference first.
All right. Let's talk about, okay, then you got the number 1 seed Bucks against the number 8 seed Orlando Magic. Where do you see this matchup?
I know Orlando got lucky last year, still in Game 1 at Toronto, the current defending world champs, and they lost the rest of the games of that series. Do I see that same scenario happening this year? No. Could they steal a game? Yes. Could they steal 2 or more? I don't see it. So I had my issues with Milwaukee this year. They are a very good team, but can they put it together in the playoffs? We shall see. But I think they have enough up and down their roster to dismiss the Orlando Magic. I know Orlando technically has a home court advantage because the ball was down there in their home state. But besides that, Orlando has no shot. I'll give them one game in this series, but that's about it. Milwaukee should win this one easily in 5 games.
And well, remember the Magic, they're not going to have Mo Bamba, who's being evaluated because he was diagnosed with COVID. So that's going to be a problem for them. Could they win a game? Maybe, but I think, Giannis and the others are on a mission. And I think that just isn't going to be enough, to sort of pull off the upset. I mean, could they maybe the Magic still won? Sure, of course they can, but I just don't see it. They did it last year against them, but I just don't see it happening this time.
No, they'll get one game, but that's it. Bucks in 5.
Right. So you got Toronto and number 7, Brooklyn. Where do you see that?
Oh, just about same thing, correct? I know Jamal Crawford was picked up right before the ball for the Brooklyn Nets. I don't know if he's back or not. If he is, they may push Toronto for a couple of games, but if not, I still like the young roster with Karis LeVert and Jared Allen. But outside of that, I don't think they have a shot against Toronto. Toronto, as we talked about on the show before, Lakeena, even though they don't have Kawhi Leonard, that is a well-stacked team led by Kyle Lowry, their point guard, who finally overcame his demons of playoff pressure last year. He had Fred Van Fleet, Rockford's very own, coming off the bench. He performed well in the playoffs last year. You have Pascal Siakam, a first-time All-Star. So I like their roster of Toronto. They're stacked, and they should beat Brooklyn. I think they will. I will say another 5-game series, but Brooklyn has the potential to push it to 6. But I'm gonna go on the safe side and say
the Raptors in 6. Yeah, but like I said, I think they could. Yeah, I think they could. I was going to say like maybe Raptors in 5. I've said it before, and I've been saying all these months. Until someone beats Toronto, they're sort of the team to beat in the East. So I'm gonna stick with that. And I think could the Nets win maybe 2 games? Yeah, but I don't think they're gonna win the series. So I would say Raptors in 5 because I just think that they want to repeat, and I think until someone beats them, they're not gonna be beat. All right. Let's see. You got 3 versus 6. You got the Celtics and the. Oh, okay. So I guess Sydney's having problems with his phone. So we'll all just press on here. You got number 3 seed Celtics against the number 6 seed Philly. Simmons being gone. He's not gonna be able to play because of injury. I think maybe this might be sort of like the last stand for Philly. There's a lot going on, so I'm a little sort of. I think Boston. They got Kemba there now. Yeah, Jason Tatum's been having a hot hand, so I really believe that this is going to be a very interesting. Could maybe Philly steal a game or 2, maybe, but we'll see.
all right.
Okay, welcome back. We've had some technical difficulties, but Sid's back with us. Hopefully, Jason will be joining us in a little bit. Where were we? Oh, Boston and Philly, the 3-6 matchup in the East for the NBA playoffs. Here on the Second Stage Sports Zoom style. You know what, Sid? I think Boston. If Kemba Walker, Jason Tatum, if they all play well, I think they could. I'm not saying that they could sweep the Sixers, but considering the fact that Simmons is gone with an injury, I just don't see the Sixers making this a series. I just don't see it happening.
I'm with you, Lakeena, on that. Joel Embiid's dealing with a couple of injuries, issues of his own. So I think Philadelphia can pull one game. But one of the teams I mentioned on this show for the past few months is the Boston Celtics. Kemba Walker, he replaces Kyrie Irving. He's had a great year, an all-star type season. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have both taken their games to the next level. So I think this is the year the Boston can make a move to at least get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Of course, they're led by head coach Brad Stevens. So due to Philadelphia's injuries, Boston should should sweep Philadelphia, but I'll give Philadelphia one game. So I have Boston in 5.
All right. And as far as the 4 or 5 matchup, should be a good one here. You got the Pacers and the Heat. Both teams, kind of had their struggles in the, during the bubble, but they kind of, got together. Like this could go 7, I think, Sid. And this could be, you could probably like flip a coin and you probably would be right on whoever wins this series.
Yeah, I have this series going 6. I have the Miami Heat because they play more of a defensive scheme than the Pacers do. Jimmy Butler is a playoff veteran, as we saw here in Chicago with Derrick Rose, even though they couldn't always get along on and off the court. But that part's another issue. But with that being said, I like their young talent with Bam Adebayo, first-time All-Star this year. You have Kendrick Nunn, Derrick Jones, and so you have some other role players, young role players down there in Miami as well. So, and they play together better than what the Pacers do. I know the Pacers are all offense. I know Malcolm Brogdon, former Milwaukee Buck, he's the new point guard now. I think Victor Oladipo is back. I'm not sure, but I know T.J. Warren has had a career, not just a career year, but he really took advantage of the games down there in the bubble. So the Pacers, I think they can keep up with the Heat scoring runs, but defensively, I like Miami better. So this series should go at least 6 games, and I have Miami in 6.
Should be a fun one. I think, like you said, Sid, I think I'll give the slight edge to Miami because of their defense, if nothing else. So I really don't know like which Pacers team we're gonna get. So I know Derrick Jones here had that scary collision, but it was like he might be all set. TJ Warren is sort of one of those players where he's kind of emerged through this bubble. So, but Oladipo's been sort of up and down. So I don't know, but I'm gonna give the Heat the edge. Not for our buddy Elena Teshar, since she's a big Heat fan, but yeah, I just think that their defensive scheme is a lot better than the Pacers. If I had to choose between the two, which defense I trust more, so we'll see. Going out west, we talked about a little more about the Lakers and the Blazers series. I mean, look, this is going to be interesting because, like I said, the Blazers have a deeper bench, so that might help them sort of push this series to 6 or 7. So, the Lakers had their struggles near the end of the bubbles, those bubble play-in games, or round robin games, if you will, in the season games. So, what do you think about this series?
For the Lakers, it's all about LeBron James. He's going to bring it come playoff time. It's really going to be about 3 things. Anthony Davis, will he show up, especially in the fourth quarter, because now he has a bona fide superstar at his hip to go through the wars of the playoffs. Number 2, who's going to come off the bench? The players that they picked up, Deion Waiters or J.R. Smith, can either one of them give them valuable minutes coming off the bench? I think that's going to be key. And number 3, Kyle Kuzma. He's going to be that third guy to help step up and give the Lakers that secondary scoring. He did look good towards the end of that bubble, especially on that game-winning shot against the Denver Nuggets. And so Kuzma's been up and down all year. And so let's see if he can bring it for the playoffs. Like you said, Lakeena, the Blazers have a deeper bench, but I think the experience that the Lakers have on the other side will give them the edge. Me personally, as a fan, I hope this series goes 7, but I'm going to take the Lakers in 7. I was going to go with them in 6, but I'm going with them in 7.
And we'll see how much gas that the Blazers have because, LeBron didn't play those last couple. I know AD played in the second to last, but I don't think he played at all in the last game, regular season game that they played. So they might be the fresher team. So we'll see if Dame Lillard still has some energy because he exerted all this energy to these bubble games. I mean, he said, "Look, I don't want to waste my time." So, but then again, he won the MVP for the bubble unanimously. So we'll see what happens there. But I like I said, I'll say the Lakers too because of experience, and like I said, I want to how much gas in the tank that the Blazers still have because that shouldn't be this disputed that these games kind of take a lot out of you. So it'll be interesting to see if Dave still has some energy. We'll see. Should be a fun series. All right, the 2 versus 7 matchup should be another good one. You got the Clippers and the Mavericks. This might be probably another one of those low versus high seeds that could be very entertaining. What do you see this series?
if the Mavericks weren't playing the Clippers, I would say they could pull off the upset. And I think Luka Doncic will have at least one game that he goes off and he gives Dallas a big win. But the Clippers overall have a better roster. They have a deeper bench. And so for that reason alone, I'm going with the Clippers. I think Montrezl Harrell is back now. I know I think he's back now. Lou Williams is back now from his little extracurricular activities away from the floor. We talked about that before. But with that being said, the Clippers just have too much scoring power over Dallas. Luka will have at least one game in this series that he goes off, and the Mavericks will win a big game. But I'm seeing the Clippers are a better team, but I think the series will go surprisingly to 6 games. So I'm picking the Clippers in 6.
I mean, Luka. I think Luka they get like maybe a game or two. Like I said, I think the experience, you got the experience factor in the playoffs, that shouldn't be disputed. So this might be another one of those series where don't be surprised if it goes maybe 5, but then again, don't be surprised if it goes 6, and this could be another one of those series that could be like that as well. Like I said, I have the Clippers in 6 because I think the Dallas is good enough to win maybe 2 games, a game, maybe 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, like you said, I think, look, Paul George, he needs to step it up in the playoffs because he doesn't usually show up in the playoffs. I know Kawhi wants to, be like because he would be the first player to ever win championships with 3 different teams. We've seen it done multiple times with guys winning with 2 teams. No one has done it with 3 teams. So that's another history making, motivation, if you will, for Kawhi. So I just think that the Clippers are more talented, from top to bottom. So I'll give it to the Clippers in 6. But it should be a fun series.
Mm-hmm.
Another fun one, 3-6 in the West. You got Denver versus Utah. Too bad Jason's not here because I know he loves that Denver team. This is sort of one of those series that's kind of evenly matched. So I'm kind of like sort of wondering, where do you see this series sit? Because I think this is one of those series that can go either way.
I agree with you, Lakeena, but it all comes down to injuries. And Bogdan Bogdanovic, the 3-point shooter for Utah, he's going to be out. And so Utah, they just don't play enough defense for me consistently. I know you got Rudy Gobert, the Cypher Tower. He controls the paint for them, but I don't see them having enough scoring power to match up with the Denver Nuggets if the Nuggets start playing their style. I know Michael Porter Jr., he's come on as of late in the bubble. You still have Jamal Murray, even though he struggled during the regular season. You still have Jokic, who looks great, dropping 30-plus pounds since he had COVID. So and plus I have better players like Jerry and Grant and I'm skipping a name or two here and there, but I like Denver's roster overall, and you still have Paul Millsap there. So with that being said, Denver should win this series, and I'm picking them in 6.
Yeah, this will be another one of those sort of very interesting kind of sort of series. But like I said before, it's all about depth. It's all about defense. I think. Look, I've been trying to figure out if I could trust Utah, but then again, Denver hasn't given me a reason to trust them either. So this could be one of those toss-up games, toss-up series, if you will. So I think I'll give it to Utah just because there's more talent on that team. Jamal Murray did kind of emerge late in the bubble. He had his struggles early on. Remember Mike Conley is not with the team right now. He left to be there for the death of birth of his son. My bad. And it's sort of gonna be one of those things where I don't know. I mean, which team do you trust more in these situations? So I'll give it to Utah just because there's more talent there. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Nuggets, beat them. All right, probably
another fun one.
Yeah, speaking of fun ones, this is probably going to be one of the most entertaining series. 4 or 5 in the West. You got Houston versus OKC. This is gonna be fun. I'm already entertained. Listen, the over-under is probably gonna be 160 or something like that for each of these, for the first half. So that's probably how the scoring thing is. Look, this could go either way. I think this is gonna go 7, but I think Houston wins just because the talent. There's a little more talent in Houston than there is with OKC. But look, don't be surprised if Thunder pulls off, which would be, I wouldn't say it's an upset, but you never know.
I will have to disagree with you, Miss Lakeena. I'm going with OKC in 6 because the injury to Russell Westbrook will set that Houston Rockets team back. I don't trust them because, as I always say, they're a regular season team, but when it comes to the playoffs, it's a whole different story. It all starts with James Harden and their head coach Mike D'Antoni. I know they're going with small ball now, and the tallest player in the starting lineup is Robert Covington, Chicago's very own. He's playing power forward, so I know what kind of style that the Rockets play. I just don't trust it. Plus, Oklahoma City has been the surprise story of the league all year long. Billy Donovan should win Coach of the Year. We'll see if that happens. But with that being said, Chris Paul has held their roster together. He's a distributor. He's made other guys better, like Gildas Alexander, Danilo Gallinari still has life left in him. So I'm looking for those young players to step up. And Chris Paul is the anchor of the team on the court. So I'm going with OKC in 6 in an upset.
Yeah, that's just well, the really big upset note though, Sid. I don't think so. I don't think this is a 4 or 5. I mean, like I said, if Houston wins a 6 or 7, I wouldn't be surprised. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, like you said, I mean, the Westbrook injury, that's a concerning thing. That's why I have them sort of hesitantly have Houston in 7. But again, I mean, this is sort of one of those series where this series really could go either way because I just think that they're both evenly matched, especially with, like you said.
I think.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that many people would consider an upset because Houston is one of those next teams that are favored to win the title outside of Milwaukee, the Lakers, and the Clippers. So I think that's why many people are calling an upset if OKC pulls this off.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, considering that everybody thought that this would be sort of a rebuild, that CP3 would want to get out of the OKC through the season, but then they started playing well, and then everything stopped, and then they really played very well during the bubble. So yeah, one of the playoff games is about to start right now, actually. So you got the Jazz. Speaking of the aforementioned Jazz and Nuggets, they actually about to start game 1 right now on ESPN. So check that out. After the podcast. So that's your preview of the NBA playoffs. I mean, this is sort of like one of those series. This playoff sort of matchups that you could kind of like take your money and then you probably would actually make some money because there's really everything's sort of a toss up now. Like I said, Vegas has no clue who's going to win. So you could probably, which 8 of these 16 teams and, make some money off of it.
Yep.
All right. So we're going to take a quick break and we're going to talk some baseball. We'll talk about the stuff in college football. Everything's sort of an upheaval now. A lot of people taking sides. Also, the NFL, they're starting their full pad practices, and there have been some very prominent injuries so far. So for Sid, I'm Lakeena. This is Second City Sports Zoom style, and we'll see you guys in a little bit.
Okay.
All right, welcome back to Second City Sports Zoom style.
Zoom style.
All right, looks like we're not going to have Jason today, but that's okay. Look, stuff happens, and look at this pandemic. Things take top priority. So, hopefully you can join us next week. Once again, I'm Lakeena McGee. You can follow me at Keena McGee on Twitter, at Keena_McGee on the Instagram.
You can follow yours truly, Sid the Kid, at SidKid80 on Twitter and Instagram. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. And we are on iHeartRadio. Just type in WARR on Anchor. That's WARR on Anchor. Type in your engine search on your iHeartRadio app. Download that app, and you can catch all of our programming, including this program, Second City Sports.
All right, you can also listen to it on Anchor, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. So we've got many places you can listen to us, and also you can watch us on YouTube. Yeah, we are regular on YouTube. So if you want to see our lovely faces and our weird decor, or weird wall colorings in some cases, so you can check that out as well. So a lot to get to in this part of the show, Sid. We'll start with baseball. We'll start with your White Sox. I mean, the White Sox were able to kind of keep from getting swept because they didn't look good on Friday. They got swept in the double. On Saturday, I should say, you'll be swept in the double headers.
Mm-hmm.
But they made some history back to back to back to back jacks. The second time they've done it. They did it once in 2008. Only the 10th time in history though that's happened for back to back home runs. So they needed to sort of even that series with the Cardinals. So Sid, what do you think? They had to sort of like a boost of morale, which is what they needed.
As we said all season long, the Chicago White Sox, their roster is built to put runs on the board offensively, especially by the long ball. They had to win that last game on Sunday against St. Louis because they were on the verge of being swept. They were embarrassed on Saturday, especially in that first game. Lucas Giolito pitched. His problem has been all year. He starts off slow, then he picks it up and he settles down. Against a good hitting team like St. Louis, you cannot do that because it'll cost you. You saw what happened in that first game on Saturday. The second game, they had the lead going late into the game, but the bullpen, which actually looked good this year, has been looking good this year. They blew it, so the Sox didn't have a chance to come back in that seven inning shortened doubleheader game, so they got swept there. But yesterday was big. He got a great outing for Dallas Keuchel. He's the only sure pitcher right now. Maybe Dylan Cease. Maybe can't see a victory every time they step out on the mound. So for the White Sox, they just got to be more consistent offensively. I know Tim Anderson is back from injury now, and he's back up leading the top of that lineup. I know Dallas Keuchel, as I mentioned a second ago, he called out his teammates finally last Monday's loss at Detroit. And you notice how that team has turned it around minus Saturday's doubleheader dip against St. Louis. So I kind of like where this Sox team is potentially headed, but they got to keep it up because they got the Tigers in town again this week over on the south side before that big 3-game series on the north side against the Cubs next week. There'll be no fans for that either.
Yeah, that was sort of definitely a big win for the White Sox, something that they desperately needed. Eloy's still diving into the stands, which I think is probably one of those things where you're glad there's nobody there, but that's something that I think they got to think about long term, getting Eloy out of there, maybe putting him in the DH position, because I don't want him to kind of break his nose or break anything else because he's trying to dive for a baseball. Like I know he'll sacrifice his body, but I think you got to think long term. But we'll see. I mean, like I said, the White Sox needed that win last night, so I think that hopefully that'll help. I mean, they got Detroit, like you said, starting tonight, so we'll see what happens. I mean, this team's capable of being right there. So, they're catching Detroit a little bit of a tailspin. They've lost 5 in a row, so we'll see if they can kind of add to Detroit's misery, if you will. Speaking of the team across town, this is why I wish Jason was here, so I'm sure he'll have an explanation as to why the Cubs were swept by the Brewers. They were struck out, I think, like 38 times in that 3-game series. I mean, Josh Hader was, lights out. So, and they were actually close on a couple of those games, so what makes it even worse. But listen, they're still 13-6. They're still well ahead in that division. Even in a 60-game season, these are kind of series that's going to happen. I mean, it's happened to the Yankees, it happened with the Dodgers, with the Padres. So I'm not worried. They start, they have that doubleheader against the Cardinals starting at about 4, after 4 today. So we'll see. Cardinals got to go across town. All these games they got to make up. So what do you think about the Cubs, and should Cubs fans be concerned?
The Cubs fans should be concerned with their bullpen, but you may have to be concerned about the end of their starting rotation. The last great outing by their starting rotation was Yu Darvish on Thursday night against Milwaukee, so you can see encouraging signs from him. But besides that, let's see if Count Hankins can be consistent. Let's see if John Lester, this is by the time he falls off, but remember, this is a strange year, so with a short schedule, so hopefully he has something left in the tank. But if you're a customer, you still got to be worried about that bullpen. They had a 3-0 lead in Sunday's game against Milwaukee. They blew that. Saturday's game did not look good either. So I'm you shouldn't be jumping off the bridges. Excuse the expression. Should you jump off the bridge? No. Should you be concerned with one eye open? Yes. But I want to see, as you mentioned, Lakeena, to have that make up the series against St. Louis. I think it's 5 games in 3 days
Yep.
with 2 doubleheaders in there. How both teams, but in particular because how are you going to manage that pitching staff? Because as I mentioned, that bullpen does not look good, and if you can't hold down a well-balanced lineup like St. Louis, there's going to be some problems there.
And remember, Chad Wood's going to be out for a couple of weeks, so that's going to be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to have to sort of maneuver some things around, especially with these doubleheaders that got coming up.
Mm-hmm.
So should be, like I said, it'll be interesting to see how the Cubs do. But like I said, I think of course you want, of course you got to keep an eye on it. But like I said, this is sort of like one of those, even in 60-game seasons, they're like yo-yos. They're like you go up and down constantly. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Going through the standings real quick. You got the Yankees, AL East. You got the Yankees. They've won 5 in a row. So and they're without some of their top guns, but guys have stepped up. So what do you think about the Yankees and how they've been able to do it? I mean, they swept Boston. Well, actually, they got a game tonight. They could sweep Boston tonight. So what do you think about the Yankees? They have been on a roll lately.
If they play the Boston Red Sox, they'll be undefeated, but that's not possible. So that's not going to happen. But injuries are a big concern for the Yankees right now. As we mentioned on our last podcast, John Carlson, he's out for many games. Hopefully you can keep Aaron Judge healthy. I think he's out too. So
yeah,
they still have a good enough lineup to get by against bad teams. But if those two guys are missing, especially come playoff time against better teams, there's going to be trouble. I don't know. Garrett Cole's having a great year for his first year with the Yankees, earning that big contract in the off season. Their bullpen looks okay, but if you don't have those two boxes in the lineup, especially come playoff time soon, you win this AL East. They're going to have problems.
Well, yeah, I'm about to say. I mean, luckily they've got their lineup has sort of been picking up the slack for that rotation. So we'll see. I mean, long term, I mean, Stan's going to be out a few more weeks. Judd's going to be out another week, maybe 2. So luckily, like you said, so luckily they're playing the Red Sox, who they've just been terrible. So we'll see what they do there. I mean, like I said, I mean, if you're a Yankee fan, you're probably like, let's just get to the playoffs and we'll see, worry about what happens from there. Tampa's still within distance. Baltimore's actually been really good lately. Again, go figure, but I don't know if they might be able to kind of, get back to, they might fall back to, although Toronto's having some injury issues too. So, I said that they could probably contend for the playoffs. That's not looking good for me right now. But yeah, so we'll see what they do there. The Twins, the Twins have been up and down. So is Cleveland. But we'll see. Sox are right there. We'll but Detroit's right behind them. So we'll see what they do. Remember, Sox and Tigers, they played tonight. The West, Oakland. Once again, they've won 4 in a row. They've now are top of the AL West.
Yeah, they swept Houston last weekend, so they're taking control of that division right now. Will it be that way at the end of the season? It may be, but right now I'm not counting the Astros out. The Astros really need to get it going. Of course, they played Seattle over the weekend and took care of business there. So I'm not declaring Oakland the winner of that division yet, but if Houston does to get it together soon, it will be over for Houston. So, but I'm not counting Houston now. I think it's a 2-team race in that division. Seattle's back. Texas is going back to the old losing ways. So it's going to be between Oakland and Houston. But Houston has to turn it around very quickly here.
Yeah, I agree. So we'll see. I think Houston will get back into it. I feel the same way about Atlanta. Atlanta's been having issues. They've won a couple in a row. I know Miami's at the top right now, but they haven't played a lot of games. They got a lot of games to make up too, like the Cardinals. So you got to think that that'll catch up to them sooner or later. The fact that they have to make up all these games, so they'll fall back to earth. Philly is sort of in the same situation, but they're hanging in there too. They've won 3 in a row, so we'll see what they do there. The Nationals, the defending champs, have been struggling. So where do you see the NL East, I should say?
I think that's still a division for the Atlanta Braves to lose. The matchup terrible. Jonas Cespedes, he's a free agent. He decided to opt out. They weren't doing that great with him in their lineup anyway after the first week of the season. So he said goodbye to him. Their pitch has been terrible. Philadelphia, I know they're mediocre under first year manager Joe Girardi, but I don't really see them catching fire. Like you said, the Marlins have been on fire ever since their break from quarantine from catching COVID outbreaks there. But like you said, they have a lot of games to make up, and that's going to be the key right there. I just don't trust them either. So it's still Atlanta's division to lose.
Yeah, I agree. I think Atlanta, once they get it together, I think Atlanta will be right there for the taking the NL East. The Central, like we said, the Cubs are still sort of well ahead of everybody right now. So, again, we'll have to keep an eye on like some of the stuff going on there. The Cardinals got a lot of games to make up, like the Marlins, like I said. So we'll see if they can kind of hang in there. But you wonder, having to play all these games consecutively, all these double headers, you got to think, will that catch up to a team? We'll find out. In the West, the Dodgers said, "Oh no, you guys are not counting us out yet." They've won 5 in a row. So, and then the Rockies have been a bit of some struggles too. So, what do you think about the NL West?
I want to ask you about a couple of key players in that division, and I had this question wrapping around my brain all weekend. Can you safely say that these two players are your top two candidates for National League MVP, and that's Fernando Tatis of San Diego and Mookie Betts of Los Angeles Dodgers?
Tatis is so exciting.
I'd say so.
Yeah, I mean, look, Tatis is very exciting. I know White Sox fans. I know you. I'm surprised you haven't said that with such disappointment, Sid. I mean, Tatis. I mean, he should be right there helping.
It happens.
Well, yeah. I mean, but listen, Tatis was a big time prospect, and the Sox had him in their system, but they made a bad trade. They sent him to San Diego, and he's doing his thing up in San Diego, bringing some excitement.
James Shields.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
James bleeping Shields.
Yeah. That I figured you see you're still mad about that trade. I told you. But yeah, I think he's right there. I think if the Padres had a better record, I would think that maybe he would probably be right there. But I think it's really Betts to lose. Although I think Tatis is right there though. I think it's between those two, and I think because he plays for the Dodgers and the fact that the Dodgers will probably end up making the playoffs, I think the edge will probably go to Betts. Status-wise, I think you could probably say that they're both kind of even. If you look through their respective stats, I mean, it's sort of one of those things where all things being equal, it comes down to like success of the teams. Look, Charlie Blackmon saying, "Hey, wait a second, I'm kind of like sort of right there too." Yeah, I played in Colorado, and I play at Coors Field where like the ball, the altitude, like you'll have like big numbers, but he could say, "Hey, I should be right there too for NL MVP." So we'll see.
Yeah, like you mentioned, it'll come down to the records of these teams, minus the Dodgers, assume they win that NL West. But I want to go back to Charlie Blackmon, and I also had this question watching one of their games last week against Arizona. And I brought this question right before the season started. Should he stay at this pace and hit over 400, even if he hit 401, 402? Should there be an asterisk only because it's a 60-game season? Not to diminish his accomplishments, but it should be sort of asterisk there.
I mean, look, listen, we're gonna be looking at the lines,
and it's not his fault.
It's
not his fault, but
yeah, I mean, this stuff is no fault of his own. But yeah, I think look, it's still an accomplishment. I mean, okay, yeah, it's 60 games, but look, if I don't think he's gonna stay at this pace. I just don't think that's gonna happen. So, I mean, I don't look if he finishes up with over 400, I think you can't really take that away from him, even though it is a 60-game sprint. I mean, it's still. I know people. I know the baseball purists gonna say, "Well, it was 162 games, so it should be an asterisk." But look, the guy did something that has not been done much, so he should get his props. This is just me, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. But I mean, like I said, this is going to be very interesting to see how all this plays out in the West, because I think after the Dodgers, I think there's still going to be that sort of that fight for that wild card spot. So, if Colorado can hang in there, I mean, Arizona may have something to say. They've won 4 in a row. The Padres, we'll see where they are. They've been kind of up and down too. So I think that after the Dodgers, I think that West sort of like is going to be a free for all for those last couple of spots in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you want to go to the gridiron, or you know what? Let's go. Let's do that hockey first.
Yes, let's do that hockey. Now we're in a radio studio, but we're gonna do the best we can.
yeah. We'll do our animated. Hawks get a big win last night to extend the series. Crawford, stand on his head last night, sort of, keeping the Hawks, although some would say slim chances of breaking through and against the Vegas Golden Knights. So they looked really impressive. Like I said, Crawford is sort of like, we had Pat Boyle on a couple of days ago, and I think he's showing you, Crawford to me is showing you why he's probably one of the most underappreciated guys in the league. 48 save. I think that's only like the second time in playoff history that a Hawks goalie has had that many saves in a playoff game. So do you think this will give the Hawks a chance to sort of, extend the series even further?
I think it does, because it shows that Corey Crawford, like you said, he's done it before. That's why he has 2 Stanley Cups on his resume. He's done it before. He did it in Game 4 to keep the Hawks in it. What I was most impressed with their victory last night was the team defense is the best effort that they've given from start to finish all season long. He has the defensemen, your forwards, and this is what playoff hockey is all about. Make sure you block shots, clearing the puck, and make sure you're getting winning battles along the board. Those Hawks defenders and the forwards were doing that last night. And you'll notice that not many second chance shots were given up by Crawford. So shout out to the Blue Liners and the other players that were playing in front of him, because you can tell Crawford was ready to go. It was a back-to-back situation. He was more ready to go. Now, Game 3 on Saturday, the Hawks should have won it, to be honest with you. If it wasn't for that turnover, which led to the first goal by William Carson of the Vegas Golden Knights. If it wasn't the case, we would probably still be playing Game 3 right now. The Hawks probably would have won that one. So, if you want to be real about it, this series should be tied 2-2 instead of 3-1 Vegas. Yeah. But with that being said, the Hawks can hopefully they can build off this momentum and take it into Game 5, because let's be honest here, the pressure is on Vegas to still get one game. The Hawks, they're off the hook for now, but they still got to go win another one to keep their season alive.
Well, absolutely, and I think the power play, killing the penalty kills, that was sort of the thing that that helped them last night too. So give some props to those guys, and the penalty kill, that should be, that they should be commended for that. I mean, like you said, Sid, I mean, they should have won Game 3. I'm going to keep saying it to people, and I think this should be a 2-2 series and a best of 3, right? So, but, look, the Hawks have done it before, come down from 3-1 to win a series. So, and it's been done before multiple times in NHL playoffs. So it wouldn't be unheard of. Well, can they do it? I don't know. But, look, there's always a chance, right?
Yeah, there's always a chance. It's really going to be tough, because you have to have every bounce go your way, and you have to have all the players playing outside of their talent ability. So, and with hockey is almost like baseball. Excuse me. So you got to have some luck go your way as well. And for the Hawks, until last night in Game 4, they drew iron like 10 or 11 times. Pat Boyle on our last podcast gave his status. He was the Hawks were the number 1 team in the league to do that. And so far in his players hitting posts, but they cannot finish the deal and scoring in the back of the net. So hopefully those chances will start coming in more, and hopefully the Hawks will start to take advantage. If you notice in Game 4 last night, Drake Kajula was crashed to the net and scored the first goal of the game. You could tell the Hawks played with a different energy, scoring that first goal. That was the first time they've done that all series long. So hopefully they can do it again. Actually build up a 2-0 lead before Vegas cut it to 2-1. But hopefully the Hawks can take that same game plan and implement it here in Game 5.
That iron's been unkind to the Hawks this whole round robin.
Yeah.
So, hopefully they can overcome that, because that just there's nothing more annoying in hockey than the puck hitting that iron on that goalpost. It's just like, it's one of the worst feelings in the world. So
Yeah, ask Patrick King on Saturday.
oh yeah, oh god, I mean, I'm sure he's still having nightmares about that goal that should have went in, but I'll digress. But as a whole, for the the NHL playoffs, real quick before we move on, the Islanders look really good. They beat the Capitals. They're up 3-0 in their series.
I'm shocked by that one.
Yeah, that is shocking. Like, I would have thought that maybe the Capitals, especially, they still got Ovechkin, they still got some of those guys from that Stanley Cup team from a couple of years ago, and they're just being dominated right now by the Islanders.
Yeah, Anders Lee, the goalie from the Islanders, has really performed well. Of course, you have Barry Trotz, who's the head coach of the Islanders, now the former head coach of the Capitals, and then previously before that, the Nashville Predators. But they really kept out Ovechkin off the score sheet. I think that's been the biggest difference so far. Now, can Washington come back from 3-0? I don't think so. Maybe they can get a game, maybe two, but the Islanders, they should move on. But these are the Stanley Cup playoffs. Even in this strange year, anything can happen. But the Islanders still look good right now. I did not expect this to be nothing seriously.
I don't think anybody did. If you ask, hockey experts, they probably would not have thought that this series would be one game away from the Capitals being eliminated. It's just insane. Stars and Flames, they're tied at 2. So this is sort of one of those series that it's sort of like, you don't really know. It's sort of evenly matched. You don't know which team you're going to, will win this series. Don't be surprised. This one could go 7, Sid.
Oh, but it does go 7. Calgary's a young team led by Johnny Gaudreau, a.k.a. Johnny Hockey. On the other side, you have the Dallas roster in the Dallas Stars. So it's been an offensive series so far. Who can come up big with the big stops the most in terms of goalies? So I'm picking down to it because they have a better roster. But like you said, don't be surprised if it goes 6 or 7. Well, it won't go 6 games, but don't be surprised if it goes 7.
Right. Yeah, I think it like I said, this is gonna be very interesting. Montreal and Philly. I mean, look, I told you about this series, Sid. It's sort of weird that Philly would lose like 6-1 or something like that in game 2, but yet they end up winning yesterday 1-0. So again, this is how strange this series is. So, what do you think about the Flyers and Canadiens?
I hope that the Flyers can win the series because they have a more offensive talented roster than Montreal does. So Montreal is physical; they can come at you defensively. So I think the Flyers will have enough to hang on in this series. But this series could go 7 as well. So, but I'm thinking that Philly will have enough to pull it out. That was a great goalie win last night.
Yeah, that was he was standing on his head too, the goalie for the Flames. St. Louis cuts into that lead against the Canucks. What do you see about that series? Vancouver's up 2-1.
A mistake of a young team coming back to find in the you-know-what. I was watching the end of that game last night. They had a penalty at the 2-minute mark of the third period, talking about Vancouver. They killed it off, but you can see that even though they forced overtime, St. Louis still had the momentum, even though Vancouver grabbed St. Louis grabbed the lead for the first time in the series in regulation last night. Vancouver came back, but you can tell going to the late stages of the game, St. Louis had the momentum. They carried it into overtime despite missing on their power play toward the end of regulation. They carried the momentum into overtime, and let's see if they can carry it into Game 4. Don't be surprised if this series is tied 2-2. I did pick Vancouver to win the upset, but St. Louis is not out of it just yet. They missed a few key players last night.
Yeah, they did. So I think I wouldn't, like you said, I wouldn't count St. Louis out because, look, they're a scrappy team. So I think they can definitely be sort of right there, kind of like to push Vancouver. Like you said, Vancouver is still a very young team. So we'll see what they do there. Tampa Bay, Columbus. Tampa's up 2-1. This has been an exciting series. So where do you see this one, Sid?
Tampa Bay trying to redeem themselves after being swept by Columbus in last year's playoffs. So, like you
Yeah.
mentioned, they're up to one. Let's see who the real superstars are for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Steven Stamkos, you still have Tyler Johnson down there. Um, you still have other prolific scorers as well. Third defenseman Victor Hedman. If you recognize some of those names, some of those names played against the Hawks in the Stanley Cup Final 5 years ago. But even though they're a little bit older, they still have a deeper team. Columbus has always been built from the goalie on up. They don't have a lot of firepower, and Tampa should win the series comfortably. But St. Louis, not St. Louis, but Columbus is always that strong defensive team that gets teams in trouble. So I won't be surprised if they go 6. Tampa should be able to win it in 5, so I won't be surprised if it goes to at least 6 games.
Tampa should win this series, though. I think they're the much better team, and like you said, they're
Mm-hmm.
trying to redeem themselves from being swept last year. So I know they were embarrassed by that. So we'll see what they do there.
Mm-hmm.
Colorado and Arizona. This is sort of another one of those series where you kind of, yeah, right. I know exactly. So where do you see this? Because it's been a very interesting series, I'll say.
Colorado is for me. It's like that team that you're waiting for them to show up and get over the next hump and go deeper into the playoffs. But on paper, they have the better roster than the Arizona Coyotes. I know the Coyotes have been kind of one of the surprise teams in the NHL this year, but Colorado, led by Nate McKinnon and Gabriel Landeskog, they had the more younger and balanced team. They should be able to win this series. But until you brought it up, I almost forgot about this series, to be honest with you. Just checking
Right.
in here and there. It's like,
Right, I know, right? I mean, yeah, it's a sort of strange how all that works. You know, they
yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, I mean, Colorado's a better team, like you said, Sid. So I'm hoping that they can pull it off, but you never know. I mean, like I said, you know, Arizona's sort of another one of those young teams that could be very scrappy too. So we'll see what they do. Last but not least, Boston and Carolina. What do you think about that series?
Tuukka Rask opting out to go home because of family
Yeah,
issues. So Yaroslav Halak, who had his own personal achievements in the playoffs a decade ago with the Montreal Canadiens. I know he's bounced around the league the last few years before settling with Boston, but Boston has enough talent to defeat Carolina. I know Carolina lost to them in 5, as we mentioned before, in last year's second round of the playoffs. So I expect Boston to take care of business here. But Boston may have some trouble going down the road, and they will feel the loss of Tuukka Rask.
yeah. Like you said, I think right now they won't feel it because I think they're a much better team, so they should be able to beat Carolina. But like you said, if they have to play Tampa in the next round, if they have to play Philly or Montreal in the next round, I mean, I don't know how. I think they're reseeding it, so I don't know how they're setting this up. But
Yeah, they're receiving the other. Yep.
yeah, so whoever they end up playing in the next round, whoever it is, I think that's gonna be telling because I think that Ross, I mean that took Ross when that story came out early Saturday morning, it was sort of like okay, and then you find out, then you find out that it was family issues. I'm like, oh, okay, oh boy. So yeah, that's gonna be interesting to see if the Bruins do feel his loss because I think he brings so much. He brings leadership, he brings scoring and tenacity, and not having him there, I think, especially later on in the playoffs, that's going to be big. So we'll see what they do. All right. So I think we got all of them. Yeah, I think we got all of them. All of them. So look, I mean, we haven't seen any big upsets so far, but we'll see. I mean, like you said, look, it's playoff hockey. There's something like it, so it should be a lot of fun these next couple of days. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see where everything is. If the Hawks can kind of extend the series even more, and we'll see what the other series are. When we reconvene on Friday.
Yep.
All right. So Sid, things are sort of starting to kind of normal out a little bit in the gridiron, the program. Well, we'll say the college stuff for last, but full pads for all these teams. I mean, our buddy Mark Grody, of course, 6-7 the score, does sideline reporting. I see Jeff Dickerson and all the work he does with them with the Bears over at ESPN Chicago. Dion Miller also. Another one of our good friends, Caitlin Sharkey. She finally gets to be able to meet some of her, her fellow reporters. Bears are in full pads. Everybody's in full pads. What are you expecting? Because we're seeing some of the clips, some of the pictures and stuff like that. Just seeing that, I think, makes me feel good that football is on its way back, hopefully.
Yeah, like we said before, since there's no preseason games this year, how will the players adapt to this quote-unquote new normal for this year? Because everybody has to practice social distancing except for when they are on the field. How will these teams operate both on and off the field? Who's going to be responsible? So I'm interested to see how long and how much time these players are adapt to these new protocols. And I wanted to ask you real quickly, Lakeena. I forgot to send you a reminder off here. Did you get a chance to catch the first episode of HBO's Hard Knocks?
I did. I saw the first episode. It was sort of weird, right? I mean, I think like Anthony Lynn, who's of course the head coach of the Chargers, sort of shared his story and how, he had dealt with the struggle of COVID-19. He wasn't, I guess he was officially diagnosed, but he was around somebody that had it, and he had some symptoms, but he wasn't really fully diagnosed. So he had to quarantine and everything. That was interesting to see. And the way they're filming it, though, Sid, I don't know if did you see the first episode yet?
Yes, I did. Yes.
What do you think? Because I think the way they had it set up, I mean, you can tell that there's not going to be a lot of so there's no training camp, so I don't know how that's going to go, but it was sort of weird. I know the ratings were very good because I think people feel like, okay, there's not going to be no preseason, so what's the point? But I liked it, so it's going to be interesting to see how, as the season goes on, how they're going to be able to do this, because how they're going to make some type of drama. Will it be sort of will it be the coaches be the more focused? Will it be like the top picks? Will it be the veteran players?
As we said before on the last podcast, HBO and the NFL films have to be creative on how they're going to present this, since there's no preseason games this year. How many of those underdog players or potential players are going to make the team? How many of those players you're going to profile? Like you said, you give more time to the head coaches. If you notice, they gave a little bit more time to Sean McVay, the head coach of the LA Rams. If you notice, he kept reminding his players during the meeting out, because they had a meeting tent outside. That don't be like the Miami Marlins. We know we got to be responsible on the field, but off the field, you got to be the same way. I don't want us to become the Miami Marlins. Look at them right now. So we got a glimpse of how certain teams are going to handle these protocols and these safety precautions for both on and off the field. And I think these other teams are they are doing the same thing, but how are they doing it? So we got a glimpse of at least what the Chargers and the Rams are doing. I'm sure the other teams will have to do similar things.
Yeah, like you said, Sid. I mean, I'm sure I'm sure it's not going to be any different from what the other teams are going to be doing. So this is going to be interesting to see how all this unfolds with these two teams, because they're sharing the facilities, they're sharing the stadiums, ultimately. So it's going to be interesting to see how they film this, how all this will get filmed. Like I said, a minute ago, what the focus is going to be on, because are they going to, there's not going to be no preseason games to go by. So we just see, it will just be just performances, how you act, how you do with the workouts, scrimmages and such. So we'll see.
Did you see that one part? I think it was toward the end of the episode when they cut that one tight end, and he said he was ticked off, and Coach Lynn said, I know that you're man, I like that you're man, but just because of the way that the situation is with the pandemic, guys are going down, say, we might call you back up. So I want to see how they're going to handle cut day, because usually when they film cut day, they send the guys to whoever to come collect the playbook, and that to come down to the general manager's office, and then the head coach. How are they going to handle cut day this year? Because you're not going to base it off of preseason games, because there's no preseason. So how many practices, how many Zoom meetings, practices are they going to have to evaluate players? So like we said before, it's going to be interesting there. What's the roster size going to be? Because things are always changing, and heaven forbid it's a team outbreak of COVID. What are you going to do?
Yeah, it's going to be something that the NFL has to think about. I'm sure teams have thought about it. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Like I said, I mean, it's something teams are going to have to think about. I'm sure the NFL's thinking about it. We've been saying, for months, Sid, since we started doing this Zoom style type show, that you are going to have to maybe perhaps extend the roster. So just in case there is an outbreak, you've got guys there to kind of, pick up the slack. So look, we've already seen some guys go down, Trey Waynes with the Bengals. He tore his pec. He's out for the year. This is a tough one. Gerald McCoy just signed with the Cowboys. Left the Bucks. Just when Tom Brady, right before Tom Brady gets there, he tore some ligaments in his leg. He's going to be out. Jalen Hurd, he's going to go to MRI, but they're saying that he might have torn his ACL. The wide receiver for the 49ers. So you've got guys going down already, and this stuff's not even COVID related. So,
yeah,
this is sort of like one of those days where you may have to expand the rosters.
Also, too, as I think I said it once or twice before on this program, I'll say it again. Since there's no preseason games this year, watch out for the amount of injuries during the month of September and early October because the preseason was canceled. There's going to be a lot of pulled hamstrings and ankle injuries. Heaven forbid, now I do mean heaven forbid, torn ACLs, as you reported, a couple of players have suffered it already, and there has been no contact. Most of the teams have started contact, in practice today. So
yep,
we already know that head coaches like Sean Payton are the same, and Bill Belichick of the Patriots, they treat September like the preseason. Looks like all the coaches will have to treat the beginning of the season, assuming it starts sometime, which I think it will. They'll have to treat September as the preseason because there's no games right now as far as preseason is concerned. So it's going to be interesting, the amount of injuries. Hopefully we don't get a lot once the real games begin, but we may see a lot. I hope not, but we may see a lot because there's only so much you can do in practice, especially.
Right. Yeah. I mean, especially that you can't really scrimmage too much. So, I mean, it's gonna, like I said, it's gonna be interesting to see if because we're seeing some. Like I said, I just named a couple of big name guys that have already been injured. So, we'll see. I mean, this isn't even COVID stuff. I mean, this is sort of like your typical football injury. So we'll see. I mean, it's gonna be fun. Gonna be interesting to see how teams adapt and respond, how players respond. So we'll see. ESPN has released its new Monday Night Football crew. It'll be Steve Levy, Brian Griese, former Chicago Bear, and Louis Riddick. What do you think about that new trio?
I know myself and Ken Davis from the Dean and Davis show. We talked about Louis Riddick. He was upset that he didn't get the Monday night football job a couple of years ago. And I know Louis Riddick has never, up until this point now, hasn't done any in-game analysis. I know he's great on SportsCenter and NFL Live, but I'm glad he's got this opportunity. You can bring a new, fresh voice in there. I know he's a former player and a former front office executive, so I think from his vantage point, he knows how to break down the game, and he knows what players' tendencies are. So I don't have a problem with it. I'm glad that he finally has the opportunity to do it. I think he's going to be great. Steve Levy, of course, you old school hockey fans who are listening to the show, he did the NHL when the NHL was on ESPN from back in the day. So he has a great voice, and also he does college football for ABC as well. So they have a good crew there. I'm really going to enjoy this crew.
I am too. I mean, I already they actually did one of the Monday night games last year, and they sounded really good together. And don't forget Steve Levy and Brian Griese. They did college football for like 4 years together. Steve's got that dry humor that can actually he says some off-color things at times. Griese, I know some people say, well, he's kind of like his dad. He's sort of like, but I've heard Brian say some interesting things too. He's got charisma and smarts just like his dad does. So I think that's a nice balance there. Of course, Louis brings his perspective, and he says some funny. I know people are like, oh, he's kind of boring. No, Louis. If you listen to Louis can say some funny. If you follow on Twitter too, he can definitely say some funny things from time to time. So because we grew up, we can't go back to when it was Howard Cosell, Frank Gifford, Don Meredith. May God rest all their souls. We grew up with, God rest his soul, Frank Gifford and Al Michaels and Dan Dierdorf. I mean, that was a really good crew, for people in our age range. Sid.
Mm-hmm.
There have been some various other people since that it just hasn't really. Maybe when Al Michaels and John Gruden and John Madden were doing it, but they were listening to, like, didn't have that sort of pop. So I think
Yeah.
most people just want to watch the games, and if the crew's great, then hey, that's a bonus.
Yeah, I agree. There, of course, like I said back when they brought in Dennis Miller for that 1 year, that was terrible. Even though they had some great games today, I think it was 2000. I want to say it was.
Yeah.
That did not work. And I know they brought in Tony Kornheiser a few years later when Monday Night Football moved to ESPN. That Gruden, I think it was Gruden and Tirico, and they brought in Kornheiser. That didn't work either.
Yeah.
I like Tony Kornheiser, but not as a game analyst. I'm sorry.
No, it just didn't work. And actually, Tirico and Gruden by themselves actually were a pretty good tandem.
Yeah.
Last year, no, it just didn't work. It just didn't. I think we love Joe Tessitore, but he belongs doing college football. And Booger, I mean, I don't think he was ready for that type of big stage. I just don't think he was ready for that. But like I said, listen, this should be a good tandem, and I think, look, like, if as long as the games are good, and if the crew's good, that's a bonus.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more.
All right, so some history made with the Washington football team. Jason Wright, who actually is a Chicagoan, mind you, he played at Northwestern. Yeah, he played at Northwestern.
That I did not know.
Yeah, he played at Northwestern in the early 2000s, I want to say, because the name sounds familiar. He played in the early 2000s. He was actually a pretty good running back. That was actually when Northwestern was actually really good. They were beating Michigan. They were beating Wisconsin. I think they beat Wisconsin a couple of times during that time, and he was right there. But he's made history as becoming the first African American front office guy. Well, a team president, if you. I think that's it. Yeah, and also he's the youngest too. He's our age, Sid, which makes us feel like underachievers. But but I think this is another one of those sort of moves that the Washington football team is making. I mean, you look at his credentials. The guy has great credentials. He has MBA. I mean, this is a guy that has earned his spot. It's sort of not one of those sort of people want to say, oh, this is a token hire. This is this and that, but this guy has the credentials. So let's see. I think, I don't know if Dan Snyder's making these decisions, or because we saw with our good friend Julie Donaldson, who's taking over media stuff. We're going to be doing radio, and that sense, and also with Mr. Wright now becoming the league's first African American team president. What do you think?
I kind of had those thoughts crawling into my head. And I heard some of those same things too this morning. Considering what the time period is in our country, but wherever the circumstances, I hope that the organization lets him do his job. Like you say, he has the credentials. He's overqualified, to be honest with you. So hopefully the higher ups above him will leave him alone. I.e. Daniel Snyder, let him do his job. Let him make the moves that help better the Washington football team. And hopefully him and Ron Rivera will work and step by step with each other, because I know head coach Ron Rivera talks about changing the culture and changing the image. Of course, they'll get the name changed after the season, but hopefully they can work together to coincide and help their roster become one of the top rosters in the league. But they have a long way to go, but this is another big step towards it.
Yeah, I mean, he played in the NFL for a few years, so he knows sort of the insights of the games. So, like you said, so he's kind of overqualified, but I think, look, as long as they leave him, as long as Dan Snyder, as long as he leaves him alone, lets him just do his job, I think they might be turning the corner here in DC.
And also to consider this with his age, as you just mentioned, Lakeena, here's a person that's a president of a team that he's a person that can, at his age, that can relate to the players, both young and old. And he knows where they're coming from. Like you say, he's been a player before. So the communication part of it, relating to your guys, is key. And so I think that's another reason why they hired him here. Not here in Chicago, but Washington.
Right. Yeah. Right. I got what you said. But yeah, look, I mean, I'm looking forward to it, and we'll see what he does. I mean, we know how Ron Rivera is. He means that we say he wants to change the culture. They're so far so good. They're doing that. So we'll see what they do. It should be interesting to see how he does in this room position. I mean, you hear him, he was making the rounds of sort of like the morning shows. I heard him on Good Morning America with Michael Strahan. This guy, very smart, very intelligent. So I think they made the right choice. And like you said, I think this is sort of like a way for them to the Washington, especially with everything that came out. Right, we talked about it, Sid, for a few weeks back when it happened. So I'm looking forward to what he does. And like you said, as long as Daniel Starter leaves him alone and lets him do his thing and let him do his job, I think they'll be able to do just fine.
Yeah.
All right, Sid. So let we save I don't want to say the best for last, but so Justin Fields, who's a QB over at Ohio State, he wrote a petition I think that's got like about 200,000 signatures, basically saying that we want to play and that it's safer for us to be playing and not to be on, at home or, and such.
Yeah.
I mean, I heard him too. I mean, I kind of like sort of said to myself, okay, this guy could probably be run for office or be a TV guy years from now. Look, because I remember hearing him when he was a senior in high school. He was a big time recruit. I heard him say, well, this guy's will probably be like a top analyst once it's all said and done. He's just that smart and very eloquent speech. But I understand where he's coming from, but when you have Brian Hanlon, who is the top medical expert for the NCAA, saying, look, the way things are set up, the way things are right now, we can't bring sports back. And you hear like all other experts saying the same thing. I don't know what medical experts at the SEC and the Big 12, what they're talking about, but and ACC too. But you see all these schools, they're saying that, we're going to press on. I'm like, okay. I mean, look at what happened over at Oklahoma. They had like 8 or 9 guys that tested positive for COVID.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And even outside of the athlete's perspective, Oklahoma State, there was a sorority house over at one of the sorority houses, like 20 some of their sorority sisters got COVID. So that whole place is being quarantined. So, and now the parents of some of these Big Ten teams, schools are sort of like, we're writing letters saying that, look, we want our guys to play, the risk, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's sort of disingenuous to compare a life-threatening disease that we're still learning about to a concussion or tearing your ACL or tearing, your Achilles. I've talked enough, Sid. What do you think? Because I'm not going to get very, very angry and I'm going to go crazy. I don't want to, impede on your time.
I'll just say this. There's no comparison when you compare COVID-19 to football injuries. There is no comparison. We had Shannon Ryan from the Chicago Tribune on our last podcast, and she was saying that one school may test in one way, but if you go play at another school at their place, or if that school comes to your place, will they be tested the same? And if they're not, it's a greater chance for you to catch this virus. So I don't blame these conferences, i.e. the Big Ten and the Pac-12, for not taking their risk. We all want to watch it as fans. Yes, we do. But as I said before, in the beginning of this pandemic, whenever sports returns, if you don't have a safety protocol for the players and the fans, even though there's no fans in the stands at the moment, but if you don't have a safety protocol for these players and the people involved, sports should not go on. And this should be applied here to college football. I know they see the big payday ahead of them at the end, but if you're going to risk these young people's lives who they have a voice, but they're not protected as far as unions are concerned or in the association, so they're out there to basically fight for themselves. You're saying that these, what the NCAA is saying, and these university presidents and these coaches are saying that these young people's lives, they are important as long as they do what we say, but we'll win it at all costs. But outside of that, they're not important to us, and I don't think that's right.
No, it really isn't right. And I think, look, ask Debbie Rucker. She's the mother of Brady Feeney, I should say, who's the old lineman for Indiana, who had COVID, now is having heart issues. Ask all these parents are saying we want our guys to play, we want our sons to play. Okay, well, ask her. and I'm sure she'll post something on her social media. I know she's on Facebook. I'm sure she'll post something and say, look, guys, it's not worth the risk. It really isn't. And, and I think that the lack of uniformity, Sid, the fact that these conferences, and look, if you want to be mad at the Big Ten and Kevin Warren and these presidents for being unilateral and being proactive, you may have a point there, and that's fine. But ask Maryland, do you really, and everything what happened with Jordan McNair last year, who passed away during workouts, and then you find out all types of other shady stuff was going on there that led to that. Do you really want your school to go through that? I mean, people can say, oh, well, they could sign like non-disclosures and, NDAs and medical blah, 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 waivers or whatever. That's not the point. A lot of these schools don't have the money to do all this, to accommodate all this. So, I saw the SWAC, they've released their football schedule for the spring. I know a couple other conferences and FCS have done it too. So we'll see what happens there. But I'm going to say it right now, Sid. It's 1:54 Central Time here in Chicago. August 17th. I have my right hand up. Nobody's going to be playing college football this year. At least not at least not in the fall. Not this fall anyway. That's my declaration.
I have my right hand up, and I agree with you as well. As you said before, and I think that is going to happen. We've seen the Big Ten and the Pac-12 postponing their fall sports until the spring. It's going to be a matter of time before the other three power conferences will do the same. I just don't see how those three conferences will carry on. I know the paycheck is big, but do you really want to risk your health and the health of those young players for some money? And like you said, we still learn a little bit more about this virus every single day. You really want to put people's lives at risk for money, because you can have all the money in the world. If your health is not in good type of shape, it doesn't mean a damn thing if you have all the money. It really doesn't.
I mean, if God forbid someone dies, leave the football aspect out of it, but what if like a soccer player or a women's volleyball player, what if somebody there dies and your school is being held liable? You're basically screwed because you're trying to over here. I mean, but the last thing they want is they don't want to make any money. I mean, okay, let's not be disingenuous here, kids. They want to make money, but it's just that it just isn't feasible.
Yeah, especially with certain schools cutting out certain programs from their campuses and universities. They're not going to have the money to pay these athletes, heaven forbid something happens to one of the other players if they happen to catch this virus. So schools got to be careful here, because they already have a financial scrape there because of not having a college football season, not having fall sports going on right now. So money is tight at these universities already. So like you said, if heaven forbid something serious could happen to these participants catching COVID-19, it's going to be on them. Like the lawsuits will be up the wazoo, and it's going to be a stain on those universities forever.
Yeah, so like you said, I know the SEC, they're having this big, schedule release tonight on the SEC network. Yeah, you won't be playing this fall, folks. I'm sorry. I know SEC, they live and breathe football, and but I'm serious. I mean, I know that some of these restaurants and these other places, they depend on that money for the fall, but it's just not. It just isn't feasible, especially when you only have like 3 conferences. I know the other conferences are saying that, look, we're gonna go ahead, but I just don't see it happening at this point. I just don't. And somebody needs to kind of like jump in and say, okay, you know what? No, we're not gonna do this. We don't want the liability.
Yeah, and that's smart for these schools to do, because, like we mentioned before on previous podcasts, the amount of money that it takes to test these players, the cost for these tests, how many times are you going to test these players? Are you going to test them every other day, daily, twice a week, 3 times a week? Now, not all schools only even playing fair, as we all know.
Right. So, yeah, like I said, I mean, I give it maybe another week or two before there maybe some people may intervene here. And look, I commend Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence and some of these, Spencer Rattner, who was supposed to be the heir apparent over at Oklahoma for Jalen Hurts. But I'm Like, look, we love college football as much as everybody does, but this season, especially in the fall, it's just not realistic. I'm sorry, and I know, we want to play, but it just isn't feasible. I'm sorry. All right, you got anything else on your
It
mind,
isn't.
Sid? You got anything else on your mind?
Just look at just wrapping up real quick. I'm looking forward to the NBA playoffs, which is kicking off right now. Can the Hawks stay alive in Game 5 of the Stanley Cup playoffs? Baseball wise, how will the Cubs do in this 5-game series against the Cardinals? And even though the Cardinals, I think a few of those games will be the home team
Right.
in that series. And the White Sox can build off of Sunday's win against St. Louis. They need to take at least 2 out of, I think it's a 3-game series against the Tigers this week.
Yeah.
I think it's a 3 or 4-game series.
Yeah, it's 3.
Well, they need to win that series against the Tigers before the big showdown next weekend against the Cubs.
Oh yeah, there won't be. Well, yeah, but there won't be any fans there, so I think that's probably a good thing. But yeah, looking forward to that. I mean, Denver is up on Utah right now. Got the game going on right now on ESPN. They're in the third. They just about to start the third quarter. So game 1 there. So good ones tonight. You got the Nets and the Raptors, the Sixers and Boston, also Dallas and the Clippers. Those should all be some good ones. ESPN got a quadruple header today and to tonight. I'm looking forward to see if the Cubs can get back on track. We'll see if the White Sox can kind of stay on track. And also the playoffs. We'll see if the Hawks can extend the series again. We'll see how some of these other teams, these other games and all these series, who can pull off the upset, if there are going to be any big upsets, how they're going to receive these. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. I'll leave you guys. All college football fans, I'll leave you guys with this. K. Vincent Jr., who's one of the top corners, people are saying that he could be a top, first round pick next year. He's opting out. He plays at LSU, so all these people all you guys in the South saying we want to play. Here's one of your top players from the defending champions saying, nope, I'm good. I want to prep for the draft. So there might be more. We'll never know. We'll see.
Yep.
All right, you follow me at Keena McGee on Twitter, at Keena_McGee on the Instagram.
You can follow yours truly, SidKid80 on Twitter and Instagram at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. You can read all of my articles at WARR.com. That's WEAREREGAL radio.com. And yes, this program, along with others from the WARR media outlets, we are WARR on Anchor. Download the iHeartRadio app. Just type in WARR on Anchor in the search engine box. And our programs, including this one, Second City Sports, will come up. So we are also on all other podcast download platforms. So, but download the iHeartRadio app, type in WARR on Anchor, it will pop up there.
Also, same on YouTube, so you can see our lovely faces. So you can listen to us, you can watch us, whatever you want to do. Yeah. So for Sid. I'm Lakeena. This has been Second City Sports Zoom style, and we'll see you Friday. Stay safe, everybody.
See you next time. Holla!